Welcome to the Dreamboat. Remember, you can join the DRI for just £30 a year. You get access to more content, including videos and discounts for our events. It's a great way of finding out more about our work, joining our dream community, and supporting this podcast. Details in the show notes and at driccpe.org.uk/membership. Welcome to the Dreamboat podcast, a place where we talk about everything dreamy, all you wanted to know about dreams and where you might find some answers. My name is Dave Billington, and I'm a psychotherapist, and I'm also director of the Dream Research Institute. And I'm joined by fellow psychotherapist Laura Payne.
Hello, I'm Laura Payne, and I'm also part of the Dream Research Institute. And we're called the Dreamboat because we are recording our podcast overlooking the beautiful canal barges here at Little Venice in London.
We'll be looking at dreams, talking to guest experts, and answering your questions.
Now, let's get on with the episode. We are often asked about sleeping advice as part of improving our dream life. Are there techniques that can improve how I sleep? How do I sleep to dream? I sleep perchance to dream. Again, a Shakespearean quote, which we often find comes to mind, and that one is from Hamlet. So nowadays, much has been written about improving good sleep health. And Sleep Dream Labs report that good sleep usually does lead to good dream recall. So we thought in this session we'd look at what do we recommend?
And there are many devices nowadays that track your sleep. Fitbit and Garmin, Apple. I wear an Apple Watch myself. That's just to name a few. There are questions about their accuracy and what they're really telling us. I remember getting an email. It was from somebody who was trying to sell me a scientific sleep tracking device, who saying in this email, if you're using a Fitbit, it's basically only marginally better than a random number generator or something like that, which was pretty challenging. I didn't buy his device, but so that we need to know a little bit about what they're actually telling us and where that information is coming from. But what does good sleep actually mean? And neuroscientists who specialize in the field of sleep, they split sleep into three categories. There's light, also known as core or non-rapid eye movement sleep, or NREM. There's REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, and deep sleep. And so we thought we'd have a look at trying to understand those stages first. Each sleep stage has its variations and is important in its own way and for its own reasons. So, for example, the N2 phase of light sleep has the brain activity that's associated with memory consolidation and intelligence. And then N3 sleep, which is the deep sleep, that seems to be the golden ticket to the notion of good sleep. And this stage correlates with body tissue repair and hormonal release. And really importantly, it's also when the toxic metabolites from brain function during the day are cleared away from the neurons and out of the brain.
Yeah, it's quite fascinating, isn't it? And obviously, a lot of us are reading about these different forms of sleep on these devices. So, for instance, the deep sleep zones at night are, for some people, difficult to achieve. And sleep apps often count the number of sleep hours you have had, but would record that sleep pattern as fair rather than good if there has been little or no deep sleep sections. So you could have, for example, 7 hours plus of sleep, but register no deep sleep sections. So this would be deemed a fair sleep rather than a good sleep. And as you say, deep sleep, or is often known as slow wave sleep, is deemed as stage 3 of the non-REM, the non-rapid eye movement sleep. So compared to REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement. And obviously we'll come back to that in a minute. So slow wave sleep involves data wave frequency, which usually lasts between 70 to 90 minutes and is often recorded at the start of your sleep cycle. And if you look at your sleep app, you'll be able to see, I don't know about yours, but mine's a Fitbit. And when I'm in deep sleep, it's got a very deep trough. And that's how it sort of marks it on the Fitbit. But what we're now seeing with some of the sleep apps is that it's showing that we can actually have deep sleep at any time of the night. I noticed on my Fitbit just a few days ago that I had woken up at around dawn, but I had then fallen back into a really deep sleep space. So even though I hadn't actually slept, I thought that well that night, because I'd had this real deep moment of this moment of very deep sleep. It recorded it as me having had a good night's sleep, even though the total hour count was down. And yes, I did wake up feeling I'd had a good night's sleep. So it's interesting.
It reminds me of experiences of being jet lagged, and anybody who's traveled might have that experience of you're completely out of whack with what daylight is doing, and maybe you fall asleep, and rather than this sense of drifting off to sleep, it's like you're instantly completely unconscious, and maybe you wake up again a short period of time later, but that sense of waking up out of a very deep sleep and being lost, not really knowing what's going on, and kind of that foggy brain feeling that goes with it. Or maybe you're falling asleep and being instantly in a dream, and there being sort of no transition between waking and dreaming. And so when we disrupt sleep, then we start to experience those sleep cycles in a different way.
They become more obvious to us, probably in some way, the sleep cycles. I know we're going to sort of look at some of the notions of deep sleep, because I think you were looking at it's something to do with our survival process, deep sleep.
So scientists think that deep sleep is an essential part of our survival process, because that's when the brain can recover from the stresses and the strains of the day. And that's when the mind-body system overall is being healed. We know from looking at even single-celled organisms that there is this cycle that goes on for almost every living creature. It's not necessarily about dreaming, but that there's a cycle of rest and waking. And of course, the whole planet is going through light and dark off and on through the day, and we've evolved in that system as well.
I like that. Yeah, slow wave sleep, as you say, has been tracked in animals such as dolphins and birds, who have this ability to, as part of the survival technique, to split the brain into half of it being one hemisphere of the brain being in deep sleep mode, with the other half awake and alert, which is obviously going to be essential if you're trying to sleep in the wild. And there are theories that humans can do this as well. It's a bit like cat napping in the afternoon on the sofa. You're with it and you're not with it, as arguably. And you often see this process in sort of people like sailors who have watches. It's known as a watch, where you're in control of the boat or not in control of the boat. And they have cycles where they have an hour on and an hour off as part of their sleep cycle. But the hour off tends to involve deep sleep. So it's almost like there's this training that, part of, it's an essential part of, the survival mechanism, I suppose, of somebody being at sea. Obviously, the flip side of deep sleep, which is known, is that certain parasomnias, like night terrors and sleepwalking and bedwetting, usually in children, are activated in this zone. Obviously, children grow out of this phase, but it's often the deep sleep that throws up the more intense side of parasomnias.
I just wanted to share something that I heard about, and then I've observed it because we're based at Little Venice, where all the canals are. And this is to do with birds who can sleep with half of their brain at once. And what you'll often see on the canals is there'll be like a little row of ducks, say 4 or 5 ducks, all lined up on the side of the canal, having a little rest. And what happens, and again, I heard about this and then observed it, is that there'll be the ducks on each end will have their outward facing eye open and the inward facing eye closed. So they're watching that their awake parts of their brains are looking out for danger on both sides. And then what happens after a while is that they'll turn around or they'll switch places with somebody else so that the other side of their brain gets to go to sleep. And the ones in the middle can have both eyes closed and their bills tucked under their wings and get full sleep for that moment. But they take turns with each other. So there's at least half a brain on each side or one whole brain for the little flock of ducks sleeping together.
I think humans could develop this technique a lot more. It's known as job sharing.
Well, yeah. And, you know, there's so many people who have sleep difficulties, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But I often wonder if there's an evolutionary side to it. It's like, okay, those are the people who you want sleeping by the cave entrance so that if any animal comes sniffing around, they're going to wake up. Whereas if you have somebody like me, the animal's going to tread on my kidneys before I notice that it's walked into the cave. I'm a deep sleeper.
I love it.
But let's move on and talk about REM sleep, because this is very much where
that's the biggie for dreamers.
That's for us. Yeah, absolutely. So REM, so rapid eye movement, REM or REM sleep. This is the time when we have most, but not all, of our dreams. And in this stage, physiologically, our muscles are very relaxed. It's called muscle atonia in the science literature. But our eyes will be moving back and forth quite rapidly. And that's where the name of the stage comes from. And I used to think, probably because I heard it a long time ago, that the eye movements were about what you're looking at in your dreams. But it turns out from more recent sleep lab research that that's not the case. Whatever the eyes are doing, it's not about looking back and forth in most cases. If you're interested in this, you may have seen it if you've watched somebody sleep, or maybe you've seen a pet sleeping. But there are videos online. You can go on YouTube and you can see the slightly odd image of somebody, including people who sleep with their eyes half open. And you can see their eyes moving around, and it looks quite odd when you see it when somebody's absolutely unconscious.
Yeah, one of my kids used to sleep with her eyes open, and it's quite disturbing. My dog often sleeps with his eyes open as well, which is quite interesting, and again has, looks in REM sleep, he's running at the same time, and you think perhaps he's running and chasing something, but as you say, there's no direct correlation. It's interesting because REM sleep has also been called paradoxical sleep because the brain waves then look like those of wakefulness, which is interesting. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the brain during this stage, or rather these stages, because you revisit REM sleep 4 or 5 times, normally over the course of the night, in gradually lengthening periods of, say, 5 to 40 minutes. And you'll be able to see that on your Fitbit. I always think that's quite interesting. If you've perhaps had an intense dream or a heavy dream, you can probably work out where that was in the night if you felt it was a long period of dreaming. And of course, it is this section where we have the vivid dreams, the longer narrative dreams that we have, where there are sort of strong reality elements, where we might go and process recent experiences. And obviously, it's where lucidity is said to occur. And there's quite a lot of research being done on our creative cells, that creativity is also enhanced in this particular zone of dreaming. And we've featured before famous art and discoveries that have been made in science from famous dreamers who have found solutions or creative answers to problems in REM sleep. So yeah, very, very productive area, obviously. Obviously, the dreamy sleep mode is also an REM mode as well. Some theories think that if the brain waves in REM actually supply the visual cortex and forebrain with a sense of visual excitement, electrical excitement, which sort of heightens the hallucination aspect of dreaming. But obviously, these are theories.
REM sleep was until very recently thought to be unique to humans, mammals, and birds. And there was a delightful study, we may have mentioned it before, I think it came out last year, about the spiders, these transparent spiders, where they can see that when they're resting, they go through these phases of rapid eye movement as well, which they can see because the baby spiders are transparent, so they can see their eyes. So you have to wonder what spiders are dreaming about.
Of us, as I think I joked last time, dreaming of us stamping on them.
That's
something.
Right. Yes, being lost in a bathtub.
Exactly. Oh dear. So again, these are these areas of sleep which you can map on your own devices, show the different zones. But how do you improve your chances of what your app might be calling a good sleep? What is it that help us improve our ability to find deep sleep or find the REM sleeps where the dreaming is mainly said to lurk? So do you have any particular sort of sleep hygiene, sleep routines that you use, Dave?
Well, as I said, I'm a deep sleeper, and I have been very lucky in that regard in my life, which is maybe why I've ended up with being focused on dream work. There's been some periods of time where there's been stress or emotional difficulty, where I've woken up in the night or had disrupted nights or jet lag, of course. But I'm really lucky in that it usually corrects pretty quickly. And my main problem is that I can take that for granted, and so then I end up staying up late and not minding my sleep hygiene because I always know that I'll go to sleep and that I adjust fairly soon. I've really seen it with people I know and the clients I've worked with, how stress and trauma can create insomnia, and how that can be something that becomes chronic, and lasts throughout the lifetime, potentially. It seems like there are some genetic and hormonal differences that affect how people sleep. And that's what I was talking about with, wondering whether there's some benefit to having some light sleepers in the village or the cave, as the case may be. How about you, Laura? What sort of practices and sleep hygiene tips do you have?
Well, I'm a bit like you. My sister and I used to joke that World War III could happen and we'd managed to sleep through it. As I've got older, things have changed slightly. Like a lot of older women, the hormonal differences that occur do. I can openly say, yeah, they do affect your sleep pattern, and I've had to try different techniques to get a better night's sleep. I find for me that I tend to, like a lot of people and a lot of theories around this, that for good sleep hygiene, try and go to bed the same time each night. I tend to eat early now and earlier because obviously what you eat tends to have an impact on sleeping. Somebody once told me that the liver does its work at night, which is the old wives, well, not wives' tales actually, about don't eat cheese or drink red wine or whatnot before you go to bed. Well, there's something in that because the liver will be doing its processing. And if you've eaten stuff that needs to be heavily processed, then that could keep you up at night. I don't know, with how accurate that is, but I think it tends to hold true in personal experience. And so, yeah, watching what you eat and drink before you go to sleep. For me personally, I really like to have a bath before I go to bed, particularly in the winter. It just sort of makes me feel warm and cozy. And there are, there's a lot of research done on certain types of bath oils that, can help you feel sleepy and encourage sleep.
Even with temperature as well. That because our body temperature drops when we go to sleep. There's something about having a hot shower or a bath, which makes our body try to cool itself off in response to the water temperature. And so then when we go to bed, it starts that process of the internal temperature going down, and that's part of that going into the process of sleep as well.
Of sleep, yeah. And also not looking at screens, digital, any sort of, online screen or any form of screen, because that does actually have a deep impact on the brain and sets up almost like what is often known as a false ADHD activity in the brain. And so if you're trying to sleep and you've just been playing Sudoku or whatever online, just in bed or whatever you do, then that can have quite an impact on the brain and being able for it to be able to shut down into healthy brain waves to start off the sleep functions that we've spoken about earlier on.
There's all that research around the blue light that we have from screens of all kinds, TV screens, phone screens, laptops, all of that, and how that stimulates particular cells in our eyes that stimulate wakefulness in the brain.
I've heard a lot of people, a lot of people like to read, but read a hard copy of something before going to sleep, and how that's a good way of helping the brain to switch off from its normal worries and concerns. So give it something else, like a piece of fiction to think about, and help the brain to switch off from the normal stresses and strains of the day, which takes me on to mindfulness. As I trained in mindfulness and obviously, as you know, written a book on the subject. And mindfulness practices before sleeping, particularly for insomniacs, has proved through research to work quite significantly. A very good practice I recommend, and you can find one of these again online. You don't have to watch it, but you can listen to it. Is the body scan, and there are different lengths of body scans, but you'll find them on YouTube. Quite, I've got one up on YouTube, and people like Professor Mark Williams has got his body scan there as well. I have found it works especially well for men. I don't know why there's been no research done on it, but men in particular really respond well to the body scan technique. More so, I'm not saying women don't, but men seem to relate to it better in many ways. And the body scan literally makes you go through the whole of your body. So, right toe, left toe, big toe, little toe, and you scan very slowly the whole body, holding it and relaxing it. And there's something about that is a very good way of just preparing the brain and the body, changing the brain waves, so you are then able to sleep. I worked for quite a while with an insomniac, and it really broke the pattern for him. He was able to start finding he could get into a better form of sleep hygiene than he had before.
Yeah. I should say that there is loads of information online if you're interested in this. If you just look up sleep hygiene, there's been plenty of work done on it. The NHS provides it. There's other health websites that talk about it, and therapy websites. It's freely available information. It can be really helpful if it just turns out you've got into some bad habits with things, and it's really easy to do when we have phones and devices that are grabbing our attention and are very habit forming. And if we have a schedule or a lifestyle that tends to be a little bit irregular, then we can get into that or get out of the habit of having a regular bedtime and so on. And it really does have an effect. I should give a couple of caveats with that as well, though, which is try all that stuff first. I think that's really important. But also be aware that if it seems like nothing is working, depression and insomnia can go hand in hand. There's different kinds of chronic sleep disorders. So if it feels like nothing's working, it might be worth talking to a professional about it and seeing if there is something underlying it. It doesn't mean it's not treatable, but it just means that treatment might need to be in that professional context. And even with that, I have to say I have a close relative who is a lifelong insomniac and went through, every possible therapy, every possible treatment, and in the end had their consultant say, maybe you're just a light sleeper. This is after 20 years of trying everything. And, so she just has to follow the sleep hygiene as much as possible and works on not being stressed out by, if there's a lack of sleep, sleeping if you can, find out, figure out and remind yourself how well you can function, even if you do have disrupted sleep. That's the kind of a CBT thing that you can focus on. And, focus on being okay rather than developing that emotion of, rising panic, because that's not going to help anything.
Yeah, something's wrong with me. I've woken up again. And we should also stress that and if you watch your Fitbit or your Apple Watch or whatever, you will know you do wake up. Nobody has a continuous sleep all the way through. There are moments where we surface, for want of a better description, and then go back into sleep. And it's when we surface slightly, if the brain activity seizes on old worries and concerns, that's when we then stay awake. And a couple of exercises that are worth trying if you haven't heard of them before. One is an extension of counting sheep, but you literally just count. And I find this works really, really well. So you literally start going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you just carry on all the way through. I think the furthest I've got to is something like 500 and something, and then that's the last number I remembered. So it's worth trying if you're waking up in the middle of the night, or even if you're struggling to just get to sleep. The old adage of counting, I found has worked. And then there's this another practice, which is a really old esoteric practice, an old Zen Buddhist practice of playing the day's film backwards. Now, some people, esoteric communities, like to play the film forward, so from where you are at the start of the day. But this practice is very much about taking it backwards. So you run the film backwards. It's not like literally you are walking backwards in the film of your life, but you take chunks of the life. So you would probably start with the chunk of that night of getting yourself ready to sleep, and you will play the film as slowly as possible, mindfully, and then you can't engage with anything because you've got to go to the next section, and you then play the next section.
So you're going back to the previous scene and then the scene before that, and
then the scene all the way through. Huh. It's not many people get to the start of the day because you basically what you're doing is you're giving the mind something else to think about, something else visual to engage with. The beauty of it is when you get to the section of the day that is causing you worry and concern, for instance, you can't stay with it because you have to go to the next section, as part of the going backwards theory.
Okay.
So give it a whirl. I find it works for me. Both of them I find have been very successful. If you get interrupted sleep, it's a great way of finding something else to engage with rather than worrying about what you should be doing the next day and thinking about lists you should be making of things you need to do and all of that material.
There's something really important about being able to be in that kind of passive state, allowing sleep to come and get you. which is why having a guided progressive meditation or body scan like that is really helpful, because you just follow along, and you drift off when you drift off. It's not a problem. You don't have to focus. You don't have to concentrate. You see on your phone and on kind of bedside devices, radios and things like that, there's often a sleep timer now where you can have a little bit of music or a story on or something like that, or a podcast, for example. And you just have it on for whatever 5 or 15 minutes, so that it allows you to be in that receptive mode. And then after a while it's not there, so it's not going to wake you back up again later in the night.
Yeah, very nice. And also in terms of dreaming, in terms of remembering your dreams, don't forget the dream journal. I know we've mentioned this before, but a good habit, if you do want to remember your dreams, is to literally take the dream journal, put it by the side of the bed, get yourself a special pen, and every night say to yourself, when I wake, I will remember my dreams. And eventually you're almost persuading the brain to allow that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Having that intention is really helpful. If you do have something in a dream journal from long ago or maybe from recently, but a way of stimulating dreams is to read over recent dreams or read over a dream journal again, and not just read it like information, but re-envision it, remember what it's like, and it kind of stimulates that part of your brain that is the or it's not your brain, your consciousness, your whole body, of what it's like to be in that creative, slightly bizarre world of a dream. And it does tend to stimulate things. I had an experience with one of my supervisees recently who heard me talk about these sorts of things, and was a person who doesn't remember their dreams normally, and had very dutifully kept a pen and paper by the bed, and came back to me at some point saying, "Oh, I found a dream. I found a dream that I'd written down. I don't remember having it, but here it is." Which I thought was really fascinating, that there'd been the wherewithal to kind of write it down, make the notes, and we could talk about it, but had no recollection of it. So when I was saying, "Oh, well, so what was the feeling that you had in it?" I don't remember having the dream at all. But so these little tips do work, of starting to just have these fragments that come, pay attention to, just there's an image, there's a color, there was it somebody from the past, was it somebody I know, even those little tiny things, and it just sort of opens up the flow of the imagery, and then the experiences, and the kind of full narrative that can come through at some point.
Yeah.
So it's time now for our dream of the week. And this week, I think, Laura, you're going to tell us a dream that somebody's offered for us. Is that right?
Yep. I thought this was an interesting dream to have for this episode, because this was a dream that was so shocking it woke the person up. So, again, if you get woken by a dream, it doesn't necessarily have to be a nightmare, but it can be a startling dream, or a dream that has a major impact on your psyche while you're still asleep. And then if you wake up, how do you get back to sleep? So this is an example of a dream that woke somebody up. And this was sent to me from somebody called Gordon. And this is apparently a man in his 60s, and currently in his life there is quite a lot of death happening. An aunt in the family had died, and a friend is also apparently coming towards the end of life and has been sent home for end of life care. And so this is what was happening, or is happening, in Gordon's life. So Gordon's dream, very short and sweet, but very profound. So apparently Gordon, in the dream, realizes that he is lying in his bed, and he is older than he is now, but he's lying in his bed and there's no one around. And he realizes that he's not sleeping in the bed. He's lying there, possibly because he's ill, but he's coming to the end of his life, his own life. And there is no one there except his daughter. And he has this overwhelming sense of love for this daughter. It's a very gushing, sort of, from what I can understand, from how it was written, a very gushing sense of love that was profound and deep and illuminating. And then he was expressing this love to the daughter, and then suddenly he realized he was dying. He was dying at that moment, and he could actually feel himself slipping away, and then he woke himself up. And that's the dream. And one could argue a very scary dream, but Gordon writes that because of the overwhelming, flooding sensation of profound love that he felt towards his daughter, that it sort of mitigated in some way the fear of dying, which also for somebody who holds a spiritual practice of some kind would be quite heartwarming, I would have thought.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, my mind immediately goes to our episode with Dr. Kerr.
Yes.
And who works in a hospice and did research on the dreams and visions of the dying, and how most of those dreams are not actually frightening, but are about love and connecting with loved ones, connecting with those who have passed on before, but really feeling a sense of appreciating the life that has been and moving onward into whatever comes next. And obviously it wasn't Gordon's time. He hasn't moved into what comes next, but and wanted to come back into waking life in some way. But how lovely to have that experience of love in that moment, and not just affection, but how did you describe it? An overflowing love, or
it was I think he said it was an overflowing, overwhelming love. It was all consuming. It was an illuminating. It had a very sort of I think he wrote it as having a very light feel about it, a glow about it. So it's, very, very profound. Hearing you talk was also making me think about common associations between sleep and dreaming and death itself.
Absolutely.
And lots of poets have written about the analogy of sleep, moving into the sleep world being an analogy for death itself.
Yeah. I had a client who found herself in this period of time where she was avoiding sleep, and kind of noticing that she'd be kind of either making her way to bed or actually in bed and starting to go to sleep, and then suddenly have to, oh no, but I got to do something. I'm going to jump up and do that, or I've had a brilliant thought, or not able to settle down, and there seemed to be a real anxiety around it. And just as we were talking about it, I asked her, is there, there's this exactly what you've just said. There's sometimes this association between sleep and death, being able to let go, and is there a place of death anxiety for you? And something about that, I still don't really know what, but something really landed for her. And when we talked about it again, and I said, well, what's been happening with your sleep? And she said, well, actually, now that I have that, when I feel myself, I'm heading towards bed and there's that urge, and I just go, oh, that's that death anxiety. And I think instead about how nice it'll be to be rested for the day tomorrow instead, which is kind of a CBT sort of thing. But something about just acknowledging it, that there is that fear, very natural fear, and being able to let it go, and maybe more than let it go, but to put it in context.
Yeah, reframe it in some way. Yeah, so
Exactly.
it becomes palatable, which is a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy technique.
Yeah.
I was also, it was reminding me, going back to some of the material that we've discussed in the episode with insomnia. There are several theories that insomnia is based on a fear of death. And that if you were working as a therapist with someone who suffered from insomnia, could you go back and track where their first encounters with death were in some way to help them find a new way of reframing their relationship with it? And very often the death has been something sudden or unpleasant in childhood, for instance.
Right. Yeah. And then, if you have adults around who can't talk about it, don't want to talk about it, or, can't handle it, then it doesn't really help a child process the feelings in that same way. Gordon's dream really strongly reminds me of an exercise, a visualization that I get people to do in a lecture that I do, but I use it in therapy as well. As part of a set of exercises about figuring out what you want to be in life and how you want to live your life, and in that exercise you imagine yourself being on your deathbed at the end of a long and fruitful life, and with your loved ones there, or whoever is appropriate, and from that perspective, looking back at your life and asking yourself, what would you regret not having done if you got to that stage? And it can be really, really powerful to think about. Okay, because often it's not a long list.
No,
That's the wonderful thing
I've
about
seen
it.
when I've seen that done, or use the technique as well, it's a game changer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It is a massive wake up call. I think I've not done it myself, but it's the Hoffman process does the same.
Okay.
The Hoffman school does the same technique where you have to visualize yourself in your coffin.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and I think very often not a dry eye in the house when that's happened.
I had it from a yoga teacher. I can name check her, Julie Platus in Paris, who was my yoga teacher trainer, and sort of shared some of those things. Again, it's about okay, so you're here for a reason, and even if you don't believe in the big reasons, it's like, make your reason. Here's what you want to do in life, and you don't have to go that deep before you actually find out. It's like, oh yeah, there are some things that I'm here to do.
Yeah, give your life meaning. Find meaning in your life.
Yeah, and we know psychologically, spiritually, socially, that what does give us meaning in life, most meaning, is connection to other people, forming relationships, having those bonds with other people. So how lovely for Gordon that what comes up is there's his daughter, his progeny is there, and there is that immense feeling of love. And it's like, okay, I think if you get to your deathbed and that's what's happening, you've done something right.
Your life lived well. Yes. So, yeah. Gordon, thank you very much indeed for sharing your dream. Yeah. Well, thank you very much indeed. It's been an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
And so, how do I sleep to dream? I hope it's been useful in some way. And so, all I can do at this point is say sweet dreams.
And keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams.
So, thank you for joining us for this week's episode. Don't forget to like us and leave comments on your favourite podcast platform. As I'm sure you know, that's the way we build an audience for the Dreamboat podcast, and also to spread news about dreaming. And as we said, there are many ways you can share your dreams at the DRI, the Dream Research Institute.
Yes, we have courses, events, and workshops, and we want to hear from you. So check out the show notes for links, or find us on Instagram and on our Facebook page and on our website at driccpe.org.uk. And if you want to explore your dreams further, or you would like to support us, you can join the DRI as a member for just £30 a year. As a member, you will get discounts for all of our events and short courses. You'll get our newsletter with latest dream research news, and we'll also be adding other special member benefits during the year. Of course, members' dreams will always be given preference for reading on the podcast Dream of the Week slot. So go to the link on the show notes and become a DRI member today. Keep dreaming and keep sharing your dreams.